I'm going to explain how you adjust tonality inside SpeedGrade. And so to see how that works, go to SpeedGrade and start it up. Click on Open Project. And go to Working Files, Premiere Pro Projects, and open up SG Tonality. And click Open. Now as a reminder, we are working with a Premiere Pro project here inside SpeedGrade. If we opened up SpeedGrade directly and tried to import these files, it simply wouldn't work. SpeedGrade does not work natively with MP4 files, nor does it work with most other HD file formats. If you want to work with those kinds of formats, you need to put them inside a Premiere Pro project and then bring that project into SpeedGrade. If you apply a look, a preset called a look, to any clip, it replaces every single thing you've done to that clip, and I'll show you what I mean. To work in this clip, I'm going to expand my view here by clicking this little triangle there or pressing the W key so you've got the whole view here. I want to change the color of this clip, so I've got the clip selected there. I'm going to change the color by taking that little plus there, holding down the Shift key, and just dragging that to an extreme position there. So we've obviously changed it now, right? And now I want to apply a look to that. And I access looks by clicking on this little button right there in the lower right-hand corner. There are some looks. Right now I've got the cinematic looks up. If I just double click on cinematic 1, that makes that appearance there. I press the Enter key to accept that. And now I'm going to close this panel by clicking on this button there. And now it's made a change to the primary layer, the thing we were working on. That red thing that we did there before has been turned off. And instead what has been done is that the saturation has been changed. So whatever work we did there has been replaced by something else. In addition, a LUT has been added. And that's fine. That won't replace your work. But this primary layer, the thing we were working on before, has been changed. So if you apply a look to a clip, it will replace everything inside that clip, including effects and other LUTs. So that's why I have a second layer here. I work on the first layer to take care of tonality. I apply looks or other effects up here. If I want to apply lookup tables or effects down on this other clip, I can. They won't replace what I've done there, but if I apply a look, it will replace it. So I'm going to undo all the stuff I just did here by clicking on this LUT there and pressing the delete key. I'm going to press the reset button here to reset that little bit of saturation there like that. And now we're back to square one. All right, I want to fix the tonality of this clip, and it's a little bit underexposed if you look here inside the waveform monitor, and a little bit overexposed if you check it out there. And if you don't see the waveform display, just right-click here and say waveform. And if you don't see the scopes at all, press the A key for analysis to open it or close it. Also a triangle there that will do it as well. All right, let's go on down to this clip here. We'll make that active as opposed to the adjustment layer being active. We'll take the clip and make it active. And we want to first adjust the blacks, the shadows. We do that by using offset. Let me scroll this a bit so you can see offset down there in the bottom. We're going to use this little triangle here, and I'm going to drag it to the right because we need to lift this up just a little bit to get the blacks right to 0. And notice when I do that, the scale jumps. The scale's moving here, and then at some point the scale's going to stop moving, and then the trace will move. So when they kind of line up like that, we've pretty much taken care of business here. It's not bad necessarily to have a little bit of black below 0, but that's about right there. Now we have some absolute blacks inside this clip. Now we want to bring the highlights down because they're too bright. So we go over here to Gain and take this little triangle and drag it left to bring them down. And notice again the scale moves before the trace moves, but eventually the trace moves. So right around there we've got a full range of luminance there from absolute black to absolute white inside this clip. Now you can adjust the midtones to taste. Now as I've talked about before, gamma really is not midtones here. It actually adjusts this sort of area down here in the lower half of things, not directly in the middle. But that's okay, because we want to darken things up a little bit. I'm going to take this to the left just a bit. And this is more an eyeball thing as opposed to something technical. You just decide what looks right. All right, now we've adjusted the tonality, but I still want to adjust contrast. And if we were using RGB curves, we'd add a couple of points. We'd put a point down toward the bottom and then bring down the shadows a little bit, and put a point up near the top and lift up the highlights a little bit. We don't have RGB curves here, but we still have the same kind of controls. So you go to Shadows now, and I want to drop the midtones of the shadows. I want to drop this area of the shadows a little bit. The same as using the RGB curves and dropping them that way. So I just slide them like this, and it affects only the shadows. It does not affect areas up here. We're making the shadows a little bit darker there without making the absolute blacks dark. Now we go to the highlights. We want to lift up this region here a little bit. Just pull it up like this. And that increases the contrast. And you do this to taste. And notice that as we've made these changes, these little buttons turn orange, indicating that you've made a change there. They're white if you don't do anything at all. They're orange if you've changed something. Let's go to this next clip. Click up there someplace. And this one is overexposed. You can see it's not down to the 0 level there, and it's above 100. So the process is similar. We have the overall tab open. We want to take the offset down, the blacks down. I'm going to pull this down so you can see that that's called offset. We'll just drag this to the left a little bit to bring those blacks down. Notice again the scale jumps when you do this. right to about there. There we have absolute blacks in there now. We want to bring the highlights down a bit by going here and grabbing gain and pulling it down just a little bit. Notice that we're just beginning to get this guys to the top, and you see how the chart moves. That's because there's some highlights that we can't see because the trace isn't bright enough, but right about there. And now we can adjust the midtones. Again, it's down here. It's not really midtones. We can maybe lift them up a little bit because it's kind of dark there. And now we want to adjust contrast. So we first go to shadows, take the midtones of the shadows, bring them down a bit. Go to highlights, go to the midtones of the highlights and lift them up a bit. And again, this is to taste. You could decide whether you want to have more contrast or not. Let's do one more and then we'll call it a day. So going down to this Coast 1 underexposed there. It's way dark. We obviously need to lift the blacks here, then lift up the highlights a lot. So go over here again to offset. Slide this to the right to lift them up to about 0. Now we're going to take the highlights and lift them way up. We get to about 100. And now I think I want to take the gamma here, this area, and lift it up a bit too. And now we'll go into contrast. Go to shadows, and you might want to drop the midtones a little bit of the shadows. And go to the highlights and lift up the midtones of the highlights. Adjust contrast that way. You have all that extra control over all the ranges of tonality, plus you can control contrast with precision.